Imagine this. Deep inside occupied Donetsk, concealed from satellite imagery, hidden from Ukrainian intelligence, and protected by layers of Russian air defense, sits one of the most secretive military installations Putin's war apparatus has ever constructed. It's not a missile depot. It's not a tank yard. It's a drone warfare command center, the pulsing core of Russia's entire unmanned campaign in the east. And on a single night in March, Ukraine located it, flew directly through its defenses, and reduced it to ashes. Welcome back to Bradley Madden. If you're new here, this channel exists to give you the complete picture. Not just the headlines, not the spin, but the deep analysis that places today's events in their proper context. What happened in Donetsk on March 18th is bigger than one strike. It's bigger than one facility. It signals a fundamental shift in how this conflict is being waged from the air. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Russia should be deeply concerned over what Ukraine just accomplished. So, make sure you're subscribed to Bradley Madden and have your notifications turned on because this story is still unfolding and we're going to keep you ahead of the curve every step of the way. Let's start at the beginning. The facility Ukraine just eliminated was not an ordinary military base. Operational hub of Russia's Rubicon unit, officially designated the Advanced UV Technology Center, established by order of Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov in August 2024. But Rubicon is far more than an administrative title on a government decree. According to Euromaidan Press, this unit commands approximately 5,000 personnel and is supported by significant financial resources, making it one of the best-funded drone warfare programs in the Russian military. Consider that number. 5,000 specialists dedicated exclusively to developing, deploying, and refining Russia's unmanned aerial campaign. Rubicon's mission is straightforward and formidable in its design. As Euromaidan Press reports, the center's primary objective has been to disrupt Ukrainian logistics and neutralize Ukraine's own drone command squads. The unit trains UV instructors, transfers battlefield experience to frontline units, and examines surveillance footage from the front lines to refine its tactics. Its analytical department collects data on every drone engagement and develops recommendations to make Russia's unmanned warfare more effective. In other words, Rubicon is the brain behind Russia's drone war in Donetsk. And Ukraine just dealt a decisive blow to that brain. Here's where it gets fascinating. The strike on March 18th wasn't a fortunate hit. It wasn't a stray drone that found its way to the wrong location. Ukraine's Special Operations Forces, known as the SSO, confirmed through their official Telegram channel that they had conducted a deliberately planned deep strike specifically designed to target the Rubicon facility and its command and control element. The SSO stated directly that long-range drones struck both the base of the classified Russian Center of Unmanned Technologies and the Coordination Center for Enemy Unmanned Systems units in the occupied city. This was a surgical operation executed with intelligence so precise it located a classified position that Russia had gone to extraordinary lengths to conceal. And Ukraine demonstrated it. A video released alongside the SSO's announcement shows the strike unfolding in real time. The footage opens with the black and white perspective of a Ukrainian drone zeroing in on its target through the darkness. The first hit is precise. Then the camera changes. A second drone approaches the now-burning Rubicon facility. That drone zooms in on the same building the first already struck, hitting it again and then again and then again. This was not a single strike. This was a deliberate, methodical demolition of multiple buildings within the Rubicon complex, with footage showing structures burning one after another as Ukraine systematically dismantled the nerve center of Russia's drone operations in Donetsk. Now you need to understand what the KV Independent reported about Rubicon back in December to appreciate just how devastating this moment is for Russia. The outlet described the unit with 3 words: deadly, elite, and scaling. That's not media exaggeration. That's a factual summary of how Rubicon has transformed Russia's drone warfare. Before Rubicon, Russia's drone operators were a loose, decentralized collection of units with no unified doctrine and little coordination. Rubicon changed that entirely. It centralized everything: the pilots, the technology, the tactics. It turned drone warfare into an industrialized, coordinated machine capable of striking Ukrainian logistics deep behind the front and hunting down Ukraine's own drone teams. The numbers confirm the scale of Rubicon's impact. According to the Kyiv Independent, the unit went from recording 513 strikes against Ukraine in February 2025 to 2,246 strikes per month by November of the same year. Let that register for a second. Between February and November alone, Rubicon's strike volume multiplied more than 4 times over. That is the kind of growth that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a unit has elite operators, quality technology, strong institutional backing, and, crucially, the intelligence to locate and eliminate Ukrainian targets. Ukraine just eliminated the infrastructure enabling all of that. And there's more to this story than just the physical destruction of the facility. As Euromaidan Press reported, Ukraine's underground resistance movement operating inside occupied Donetsk contributed directly to the success of this series of strikes. Let that register. The success of Ukraine's strike on Russia's most classified drone facility wasn't achieved from the outside alone. It was enabled, at least in part, by people on the ground inside Russian-occupied territory who chose to act against Putin's occupation. This is not just a military story. It's a story about the limits of Russian control in the territories it claims to have permanently incorporated. Now, before we get into what this strike means on a strategic level, there's another Rubicon story from earlier this year that tells us something equally important about the state of Russia's supposedly elite units. On February 16th, United 24 Media reported on a remarkable defection. One of Rubicon's drone operators, not just any soldier, but an elite member of Russia's most advanced UV center, had crossed over to Ukraine. His name is Myroslav Semenov, and his story strips away every piece of propaganda Putin has used to sell this conflict to his own people. Before the invasion, Semenov was a real estate professional from Novosibirsk. He was picked up by police in Moscow for failing to comply with a service order. He was given a choice that wasn't genuinely a choice at all. Formal conscription to the front or a logistics role near his father. He chose the latter. Gradually, against his will and against any measure of informed consent, he found himself operating as a drone specialist for Rubicon. Semenov attempted to escape once before. He was caught. He was sent to the front as a punishment, deployed as an assault soldier in the kind of devastating infantry wave that has become Putin's signature approach. Instead of accepting that fate, he contacted Ukraine's I Want to Live program and made a 10-kilometer trek on foot over 6 miles through occupied territory to hand himself over to Ukrainian forces. And when he crossed that line, something happened that confirmed everything he needed to know about the choice he had made. A Russian soldier, also captured, was found injured. A Ukrainian fighter carried that soldier rather than leaving him behind. That's when I understood the difference between Russia and Ukraine. Semenov said in a video interview, when asked about his plans going forward, his answer was unambiguous. Now to resist, he said, to oppose them. I do not consider them honorable. I have very serious grievances against my state. They destroyed not only my life, but the lives of many soldiers. Rubicon is burning. Its operators are defecting. The myth of Russia's elite drone force is fracturing under the weight of the reality it has created for its own people. But let's come back to the strategic picture because the March 18th strike is not just about Rubicon. It's about how Ukraine is fundamentally changing its approach to the air campaign. Here's where it becomes truly remarkable. What Ukraine deployed against Rubicon is part of a new class of weapons that military analysts have begun calling middle-strike drones. These are not the FPV drones Ukraine uses in its frontline engagement zones. And they are not the long-range drones Ukraine has been sending deep into Russia for over a year. They occupy a completely different operational space, striking targets in the 30 to 100 kilometer range that was previously unreachable by Ukraine's existing drone fleet. Why does that matter? Because, as former U.S. Army Green Beret Brian Pickens explained to the Center for European Policy Analysis in January, that range is exactly where Russia has been positioning its most valuable assets. Most of what matters now sits in the 3,100 kilometers range. Pickens told SIPA, Russia pushes expendable infantry forward while holding its most valuable systems deep and protected by electronic warfare. Ukraine does not have scalable systems that can reliably strike there. Until now, with FPV drones, Ukraine controls the immediate front, the engagement zones where Russian infantry advances and gets eliminated. With long-range drones, Ukraine reaches deep into Russia itself, targeting refineries, factories, and military infrastructure hundreds of kilometers from the border. But that middle layer, the rear areas of occupied territory where Russia stores its most prized equipment and runs its most sensitive operations, that was previously a sanctuary. Rubicon sat in that sanctuary, and Ukraine just shattered that sanctuary's guarantee of safety. The implications are enormous. Russia has been exploiting that middle, range-blind spot for months, using it to stage supplies, run command elements, position its best drone units, and coordinate logistics beyond Ukraine's reach. All of that is now under threat. Every Russian commander looking at a map of the occupied territories is now running the same calculation. If Ukraine's drones can find and destroy a classified Rubicon facility, what else can they reach? And the numbers back up just how dramatically Ukraine's drone campaign has accelerated. According to a Kyiv Post analysis from March 19th, Ukraine has conducted 40 major attacks against targets in the mid and long range, stretching from 50 to 250 kilometers in just the first half of March. For context, Ukraine's previous record for strikes in this range was 57 attacks across the entire month of December 2025. If Ukraine maintains its current pace for the rest of March, it will have conducted around 80 major attacks, more than a 50% increase over its previous best. Ukraine's drone swarms are also growing in magnitude. In the 6 weeks leading up to March 18th, the average swarm heading into Russia or occupied territory contained between 100 and 200 drones. At the end of 2025, that number was between 50 and 70. The production capacity, the targeting intelligence, and the operational doctrine have all advanced simultaneously. Ukraine isn't just doing more. Ukraine is doing something qualitatively different. And the strike on Rubicon is the most vivid evidence of that yet. Now, we mentioned at the very top of this video that the Rubicon strike was not the only devastating blow Russia absorbed last week. Stay with us, because what happened in Ulanovsk and Stay-Rauza shows that Ukraine's combined approach, middle strikes and long-range strikes running in parallel, is dismantling Russia's ability to sustain this conflict from the air. On March 16th, Ukrainian drones traveled to Russia's Ulanovsk region, located east of Moscow and approximately 800 kilometers, about 500 miles from the Ukrainian border. Their target was the Aviastar aircraft manufacturing plant owned by United Aircraft Corporation, itself a subsidiary of Russia's state-owned defense giant Rostec, as confirmed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The plant is responsible for producing IL-76MD-9A military transport aircraft and IL-78M-9A aerial refueling tankers, and it services the remaining AN-124 Rustlin heavy cargo aircraft still operating in Russia's fleet. According to the General Staff's Telegram update, a climate-controlled hangar and aircraft parking areas were hit with several aircraft on the premises sustaining varying degrees of damage. A local Telegram channel, Tresh Yelenovsk, reported afterward that the AVR plant was temporarily not functioning. Russia's largest aircraft manufacturing facility temporarily not functioning. Then just 1 day later on March 17th, Ukraine struck again. This time the target was the 123rd Aircraft Repair Plant in Staya-Rauza in Russia's Novgorod region. The General Staff confirmed the strike on Telegram, explaining that the facility specializes in the full cycle of repair and modernization of military transport aircraft and their components, and that the plant has its own runway, allowing heavy aircraft to be received directly on site. The General Staff confirmed that a hangar used for servicing IL-76MD-9A and L-410 aircraft was hit. According to other reporting, including from the Ukrainian Telegram channel Exilanova Plus, the facility also services IL-78 tanker aircraft and their engines. And some reports have suggested the plant may even house A-50 airborne early warning and control aircraft, though this has not been independently confirmed. In 2 nights, Ukraine took down a production facility and a repair facility, each essential to a different part of Russia's military aviation chain. Consider what that means. Russia can't build new aircraft at the rate it needs to at Aviar because the plant is damaged, and the planes it already has that need maintenance can't get repaired at Staya Russa because that plant is damaged too. The aircraft are stuck. The production line is halted. The logistics chain that depends on these planes. The movement of troops, cargo, and fuel across Russia's vast territory to support the invasion has just hit a wall. And this matters far more than it might seem at first glance, because Russia's military aviation was already in serious difficulty before Ukraine struck these plants. A December 2025 incident reported by the New Voice of Ukraine tells the story. An An-22 aircraft crashed over Russia's Ivanovo Oblast. Around the same time, 2 Russian pilots perished when an ejector seat malfunctioned while their fighter jet was inside a hangar, still safely on the ground. Not in combat, not in flight, in a hangar. Those kinds of incidents don't happen in a healthy aviation program. They happen when maintenance standards have collapsed, when spare parts are unavailable, and when the infrastructure supporting military aviation has been hollowed out by years of sanctions cutting off access to foreign components. Pavlo Nerosny, the founder of the nonprofit Reactive Mail, described Russia's aviation crisis to the New Voice of Ukraine with one particularly striking detail. Russian aviation is degrading fast. That's no secret. Nerosny explained, even Russian propagandists have inadvertently admitted this. There was a moment when a Russian aircraft was neutralized by a drone and a Russian propagandist said, it wasn't an important plane anyway. We were going to dismantle it for parts. That phrase, dismantle it for parts, tells you everything. Russia is cannibalizing its own aircraft because the parts it needs aren't available through normal supply chains. Sanctions have done their work. And Ukraine, knowing this, has deliberately targeted the facilities that produce and store the components Russia needs most. With the Avistar plant offline and the 123rd aircraft repair plant damaged, whatever inventory of critical components existed at those sites may well have gone up in smoke along with the hangars. Aviation components are like gold dust in Russia right now. Losing them is not just a logistical setback. It's potentially irreplaceable damage in a military-industrial sector already running on reserves. Let's zoom out and put all of this together, because the picture that emerges from the events of March 16th through March 18th is one of Ukraine operating on multiple levels simultaneously in a way that would have seemed impossible even 6 months ago. Ukraine hit Rubicon in Donetsk, neutralizing Russia's elite drone force and its command and control infrastructure in the occupied territories. It did this using its new middle strike drone capability, which has opened up the previously unreachable rear zone of occupied territory. At the same time, Ukraine hit the Aviastar plant in Olenovsk 800 kilometers from its own border, disabling production of Russia's military transport and refueling aircraft. And it followed that up with a strike on the 123rd aircraft repair plant in Staya Russa, cutting off Russia's ability to repair the very aircraft that Aviastar can no longer produce fast enough. This is not coincidence. This is coordinated strategic targeting designed to simultaneously strip Russia of its offensive drone capability in Donetsk, its air transport capability across Russian territory, and its ability to repair and sustain the aircraft it still has. And it's all happening while Ukraine's frontline engagement zones continue to deplete Russia of infantry at a rate that is simply unsustainable. As of March 2026, Russia's cumulative casualties since the start of the full-scale invasion are approaching 1.29 million. Every soldier that Russia loses in the field is replaced by someone who is barely trained, poorly equipped, and nowhere near prepared for the conditions of a modern industrial conflict. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance, Russia has also lost 435 fixed-wing aircraft and 349 helicopters since the invasion began. An aerial losses figure that amounts to approximately $8.5 billion in destroyed aviation assets. Russia has responded to those aerial losses by pulling its planes far back from Ukraine, where they fire missiles and glide bombs from a safe distance. But with Ukraine now able to reach aircraft manufacturing plants and repair facilities hundreds of kilometers inside Russia, that safe distance is diminishing fast. If Ukraine can find it and reach it, Ukraine can strike it and Russia knows it. That is the strategic reality that the events of this week have crystallized. Putin has no part of his military apparatus that is now truly secure. If you're watching Bradley Madden for the first time, this is what we do here. We don't just read you the headlines, we put them in context, we connect the threads. We show you why the thing that happened today matters for what happens tomorrow. Hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss a breakdown like this one. There is one more dimension to this story that deserves attention before we conclude, because it speaks to something that goes deeper than drones and aircraft plants. Ukraine's strike on the Rubicon facility succeeded in part because of people, specifically members of Ukraine's underground resistance operating inside Russian-occupied Donetsk, who helped provide the intelligence and coordination needed to identify and strike a classified location. According to Euromaidan Press, the SSO explicitly acknowledged the contribution of underground resistance members to the success of the strike series on March 18th. These are Ukrainian citizens living under Russian occupation who chose at enormous personal risk to act against the force that claims to have liberated them. And then there is Myroslav Semenov, the Rubicon operator who walked 10 kilometers through occupied territory to surrender to Ukraine rather than continue serving for a state that had conscripted him against his will. These are not isolated incidents. Their data points in a pattern. Russia's occupation of Ukrainian territory is not producing the stability and consent that Putin promised. It is producing resistance fighters, defectors, and underground networks that are actively helping Ukraine dismantle the military infrastructure Putin has built on seized land. The pressure around Putin's position grows stronger by the day. Ukraine's drone campaign has entered a new phase, one defined by reach, precision, and the ability to strike across the full spectrum of targets. Simultaneously, the Rubicon strike showed what Ukraine can do in the occupied middle ground. The AR and Staya Raza strikes showed what Ukraine can do 800 kilometers inside Russia. And the underlying intelligence networks, the underground resistance, and the defections from within Russia's own elite units show that Ukraine's advantages are not limited to hardware. Russia is losing the drone campaign. Russia is losing the aviation campaign. And the human infrastructure that was supposed to sustain Putin's effort, the soldiers, the operators, the technicians, is beginning to fracture. We will keep you updated on every development as Ukraine's new drone strategy continues to reshape this conflict. If this analysis gave you a fuller picture than you were getting elsewhere, the best thing you can do is share this video and subscribe to Bradley Madden. We're here to make sure you understand not just what is happening, but why it matters. Thanks for watching.